My name is Almida. And 3 months ago, at a crowded family dinner, my brother slammed his palm on the table and said, "The rent is now $8,800. Don't like it? Move out." Everyone laughed, even my parents. They didn't know that within hours, I'd set in motion a plan that would turn their laughter into silence, because by the next family dinner, the house they mocked me in wouldn't belong to him anymore. It would belong to me. If you've ever been underestimated, humiliated, or treated like you don't belong in your own home, hit that like button and subscribe. Because today's story, my story, is about how I turned betrayal into power and served revenge colder than anyone expected. I grew up in Salt Lake City, in a house that always smelled like pine polish and old memories. Every photo on the wall was of my brother, Connor, smiling at graduations, trophies, vacations. My pictures? Hidden somewhere in a drawer, probably collecting dust. Our parents, Victor and Marlene, didn't mean to play favorites, or at least, that's what they always claimed. But favoritism wasn't about words in our house. It was about tone, silence, and the invisible rules that made me feel like a guest in my own family. Connor was the son they bragged about at dinner parties. Connor's managing the family finances. Dad would beam. Connor's got that business mind. When it came to me, Mom would smile tightly and say, "Almida's doing something with computers." Something. That word stung more than any insult. I was the quiet kid, the one who fixed the Wi-Fi, cooked dinner when Mom was tired, and stayed up late finishing group projects my classmates dumped on me. Connor, on the other hand, was the leader. He had charisma, a loud voice, and the ability to make people feel small when he wanted to. Our grandmother, Eleanor, was the only one who saw through it. She used to hold my hand and whisper, "You've got more strength than you realize, Almida. One day, you'll stop asking for their approval." But Grandma passed away when I was 19, and with her, my only real ally vanished. After her funeral, Dad told me to sign some transfer forms for the family property. He said it was just to keep the taxes clean. I trusted him. I was too naive not to. Years later, I learned that signature effectively handed full ownership of our house to Connor. They didn't even hide it. Mom framed the new deed and hung it in the hallway. "It's for stability," she said. "Connor will take care of us. Take care of them, maybe. Not me." I tried to be independent. I got a degree in computer science from a local college, not a fancy one, but I worked my way through. Nights in the lab, days at a call center, barely sleeping but feeling proud that I didn't need handouts. When I graduated, Connor made a joke at dinner. "So you fixing printers for a living now?" Everyone laughed. Even Dad chuckled, shaking his head like it was harmless fun. That's when I learned. Mockery was their love language. After college, I couldn't afford my own place yet. Rent in the city was high, and my starting salary barely covered bills. Connor had already moved back home after his business venture failed, claiming he was stabilizing family finances. Somehow, that meant I had to pay a small contribution for living there. At first, it was $400 a month, fair enough. Then $800. Then $1,500. Every time I got a raise, Connor adjusted the rent. When I questioned it, he'd grin and say, "You're living under my roof, remember? Don't like it, move out." That phrase became his weapon. Every month, a reminder that I was second class in my own childhood home. My parents sided with him every time. "He's responsible, Almida," Mom would insist. "You should be grateful he's giving you a place to stay." Grateful for paying inflated rent to my own brother. I started eating dinners alone in my room, headphones on, pretending I didn't hear them laughing downstairs. Connor would host parties, friends from his investor circle, drinking wine in the same kitchen where Grandma once baked pies for us. Sometimes, I'd come down for a glass of water and he'd smirk. "Hey, tech girl, still saving the world one computer at a time?" Laughter would follow, and I'd go back upstairs, heart pounding but silent. Despite everything, I tried to keep peace. I told myself, just save enough, then move out. I worked long hours at a local software company. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid steady. At night, I tinkered on small coding projects, a few automation scripts, a web security tool. I didn't know it then, but those late-night experiments would later become the foundation of Almida Tech. But back then, I was just tired. Tired of walking on eggshells. tired of pretending their approval mattered. One night, I overheard my parents in the living room. Mom whispered, "We need to remind her to respect Connor. She gets too opinionated lately." Dad replied, "She's always been like that, thinking she knows more than him." I stood in the hallway, tears burning my eyes. I wasn't angry, not yet, just hollow. That's when I realized I could never win their approval. No matter how much I achieved, I'd always be the daughter who should be grateful. Still I stayed, partly out of guilt, partly out of nostalgia. This was Grandma's house. I could still smell her perfume on the hallway curtains, still see her handwriting on old recipe cards. Leaving felt like betraying her memory. Things got worse after Connor started dating a woman named Vanessa. She was sharp-tongued and shallow, the kind of person who sized you up before deciding if you mattered. She'd stroll into the house in designer heels and glance around like she owned the place. One evening, I heard her whisper to Connor, "Why does she still live here? It's weird." Connor replied, "She can't afford anything better." They laughed together. That night, I made a promise to myself. I'd never let them humiliate me again. But revenge wasn't on my mind yet. Survival was. I started saving every dollar, cutting unnecessary expenses, building a quiet emergency fund. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but something inside me was shifting. Grandma's words echoed in my mind every time Connor called me a freeloader or charity case. Never beg for a seat when you can build your own table. Maybe that was it. I'd stop asking to sit at theirs. The breaking point came one Sunday morning. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Connor walked in wearing his robe, scrolling his phone. Without looking up, he said, "By the way, we'll talk later about the rent adjustment. Market rates have gone up." I froze. "What do you mean?" He finally looked at me, smirked, and said, "Relax. You'll find out at dinner." That single moment, the smugness in his voice, the way he treated me like an unwanted tenant, lit a fire in me I didn't know I had. That night's dinner would change everything. But before that moment came, I'd already decided. I would never, ever let him have power over me again. That night, dinner felt like a scene rehearsed for humiliation. Connor sat at the head of the table, not Dad, tapping his fork against his glass like he was hosting some corporate meeting. Mom smiled proudly beside him. Dad was buried in his phone, barely listening. "Effective next month," Connor began, unfolding a paper. "Rent is increasing to $8,800. It's what the market demands. And frankly, if you don't like it..." He paused deliberately, eyes flicking to me. "You can move out." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My fork slipped from my hand, clattering against the plate. Mom cleared her throat. "Connor's being fair, Almida. He's managing the property now. You should respect that." Fair. That word again. Fair meant him taking everything, and me pretending it was okay. I stared down at my half-eaten meal, feeling my heart pound, so hard it drowned out every voice at the table. Then I looked up and smiled. "Sure," I said quietly. "Whatever you say." Connor smirked, mistaking my calm for surrender. He had no idea that in that moment, I stopped being his victim. That night, I sat by my window for hours, watching the city lights blink like quiet signals from the universe. Every flicker seemed to whisper enough. I opened my old laptop, the same one Connor mocked me for, and started sketching out an idea I'd shelved years ago, a software system that protected small businesses from online scams. Something scalable, something mine. By sunrise, the plan had a name, Almida Tech. It wasn't just a company idea. It was my escape route, and, eventually, my weapon. I started working 16-hour days. Mornings at my day job, nights building code. I turned the basement, the same space Connor used for storage, into my private office. Every click, every keystroke was therapy. Every error I debugged felt like reclaiming a piece of myself he tried to erase. Weeks turned into months. I barely spoke at dinner anymore, barely reacted to Connor's provocations. He bragged about real estate expansion and mocked me for chasing startup fantasies. I just smiled, because the less he knew, the better. Then one evening, my phone buzzed with an email that made my heart skip. A law firm wanted to license my prototype. It wasn't huge money, but it was proof. My idea worked. And from that point, everything accelerated. Contracts, clients, income. I incorporated officially, hired remote developers, and moved the company's legal registration under Almida Tech Holdings. Quietly, legally, completely invisible to my family. Because while they were busy laughing upstairs, I was quietly building the empire that would one day buy the ground they stood on. And the most poetic part? They wouldn't even see it coming. Success didn't come overnight, but when it did, it came fast. Within a year, Almida Tech grew from a basement dream into a legitimate business. I started getting emails from clients across the country, accountants, small tech firms, even an educational startup that wanted my security system integrated into their platform. Every morning, I woke up before dawn, logged in, and worked in silence. No celebration, no announcements. Just discipline and focus. Because I knew the moment I bragged, Connor would try to take credit or tear me down. Money began flowing in steadily, then abundantly. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving paycheck to paycheck. I opened a business account, hired 2 remote coders, and even got an accountant, all under the company name Almida Tech Holdings LLC. Meanwhile, Connor's confidence started to crack. At first, I didn't notice. But little things changed. His car disappeared from the driveway, replaced by an older model. His party stopped. His laughter quieted. Then, one night while I was working late in the basement, I overheard him on the phone. He was pacing the hallway, voice sharp with panic. "What do you mean I'm behind on payments? I just need more time. You can't take the property. It's under my name." My hands froze over the keyboard. Property. Payments. The house. I muted my laptop fan and listened. He was talking to the bank. Connor was drowning in debt. He'd used the house as collateral to finance one of his real estate ventures, and now it was collapsing. When he hung up, he kicked the wall in frustration. I stayed silent in the basement, my heart racing with a feeling I hadn't felt in years, power. That was the moment everything aligned. The opportunity I'd been waiting for wasn't just knocking, it was banging on the door. The next day, I called my old friend Wendy, who had become a successful lawyer. We hadn't talked much since college, but when I told her what was happening, she laughed softly. "Almida," she said, "karma works in mysterious ways. What do you want to do?" I took a deep breath. "I want to buy the house." Wendy paused, then smiled through the phone. "Then let's do it clean. No drama. Just precision." 4 weeks, we worked quietly behind the scenes. Wendy handled the legal side, the contracts, the shell acquisition, the negotiations with the bank. I transferred funds from my company account under a new holding branch. It was almost poetic. Connor's arrogance had put him in debt, and my hard work was about to buy the very roof he used to control me with. When the final offer went through, Wendy sent a single text that made my throat tighten. "Congratulations, homeowner." That night, I stood in the front yard, the same house that had witnessed every humiliation, and whispered, "Grandma, I finally built my own table." 3 weeks later, the invitation came. Connor sent a smug text. "Family dinner Sunday. Don't be late. We need to finalize your new rent terms." I stared at my phone and smiled. The same hands that once trembled at his messages were now steady, because this time, I wasn't walking into humiliation. I was walking into victory. I told Wendy everything. She grinned like a wolf. "So you're ready to show him?" "More than ready," I said. That Sunday I arrived early, calm, poised, wearing a navy suit. My hair pinned neatly, laptop bag in hand. Wendy joined me, dressed professionally, carrying a thin leather folder. Mom opened the door, visibly surprised. "Oh, Almida, you look different." "Thank you," I replied softly. "I feel different." Inside, the table was perfectly set. Roast chicken, candles, laughter. Connor's girlfriend Vanessa sat beside him, swirling her wine like she owned the place. Connor looked up and smirked. My tenant's here." Laughter rippled around the table. But this time I didn't flinch. As everyone sat, Connor cleared his throat dramatically. "So," he began, "as discussed, market prices are rising, and since this house isn't yours anymore," I interrupted gently. The table went silent. Connor blinked, confused. "What?" I smiled. "You said it's your house." "It's not. Not anymore." Wendy placed the folder on the table, sliding it toward him. "Here's the official documentation," she said, voice calm and precise. As of 3 weeks ago, the property was legally transferred to Almida Tech Holdings, LLC, owned solely by Miss Almida. For a moment, the room was frozen. Then Mom scoffed. That's ridiculous. Connor owns this home. Wendy opened the deed, flipping to the notarized signatures. I assure you, Mrs. Hamilton, your son no longer does. He defaulted on his refinancing loans. The bank repossessed the property. We bought it legally. Connor's face drained of color. No, this isn't. I leaned back, letting every ounce of calm power wash through me. You remember when you said rent was going up to $8,800? I asked sweetly. He glared at me. Well, I continued, since you'll be needing a place to stay, I've drafted a lease for you. Market rates, $8,800 sounds fair, right? Vanessa covered her mouth. Mom gasped. Dad muttered something about betrayal. But I stayed silent, watching the same people who once laughed at me now drown in disbelief. Connor shot to his feet, fists clenched. You can't do this. I already did, I replied simply. Wendy stood beside me, her tone professional. You have 30 days to vacate, Mr. Hamilton. After that, legal eviction proceedings will begin. And just like that, the power shifted. For years, they made me feel small at that very table. But that night, I didn't need to raise my voice. The truth spoke louder than any scream ever could. The next few weeks were quiet, almost too quiet. Connor moved out first. He didn't look at me, didn't say goodbye, didn't even take all his things. His pride weighed too heavy for words. Vanessa left with him, muttering something about not living under his sister's charity. My parents followed soon after, furious and self-righteous. Mom accused me of tearing the family apart. Dad refused to make eye contact as he hauled boxes down the driveway. But as their car disappeared around the corner, a strange peace settled over me. For the first time in my life, the house wasn't a battlefield, it was mine. I walked through every room, slowly, like I was meeting them for the first time. The kitchen where I once ate alone in silence. The hallway where Grandma's photo still hung, her kind eyes and knowing smile. And the basement, my first office, my secret sanctuary. Now, every corner whispered something new, not shame but strength. I spent the next few months transforming the place. Gone were the heavy drapes and dusty trophies of Connor's fake success. I renovated the house with clean lines, bright light, and open spaces. The same property that once symbolized my humiliation now became my greatest victory, a modern co-living rental for women in tech, designed to support those chasing dreams without family backing. Every month, the rent checks arrived on time, not as payment, but as a reminder. A reminder that I no longer owed anyone my silence or submission. One afternoon, as I reviewed company reports, Wendy called. Guess what? She said, smiling through the phone. Your company's valuation just crossed $7 million. For a second, I couldn't speak. $7 million. I thought about that basement, the creaking chair, the flickering light, the smell of dust. And I smiled. Grandma was right, I whispered. Never beg for a seat when you can build your own table. A few weeks later, I received a letter. It was from Connor. Short, shaky handwriting. I'm sorry. I didn't realize how badly I treated you. I just wanted respect, and I guess I took yours instead. I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty, but because closure doesn't always need conversation. Sometimes silence is enough. One evening, I sat on the front porch with a cup of tea. The sunset painted the sky in colors I hadn't noticed in years. Soft pink, calm gold, a kind of peace that doesn't demand attention. I remembered every insult, every belittling laugh, every night I doubted myself. And I realized something. Revenge wasn't about making them suffer. It was about finally being free. Owning that house wasn't the triumph. Owning my life was. I built something out of the very ashes they tried to bury me in. And that, I think, is the sweetest form of justice. Family doesn't always mean love. Sometimes it's the lesson that pushes you toward your destiny. If you've ever been treated like the lesser one, remember, their underestimation is your greatest fuel. Because one day, when they finally look up, you won't be the one sitting at their table. You'll be the one who built the house around it. And that was my story. How I turned humiliation into power and silence into success. If this story gave you chills, or made you believe that karma always finds its way, then smash that like button and subscribe for more true revenge stories just like this. Tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen? Because sometimes the best justice is poetic.